Hi, this is Dr. Jenny Mitchell in the Master of Leadership Development program at St. Mary of the Woods College. I want to give you a different viewpoint of this dashboard. In order for you to kind of see what I'm talking about here, I'm going to take you a little bit through some of the things I do to clean the data. So first of all, I've opened up the Intro to Pivot Tables and Dashboard file by John, and I'm going to right click on the Data tab, and I'm going to move or copy. And what I want to do is I want to create a copy of the data into a blank book. This way I'm going to get to practice all the things I need to practice. Now that I'm in this book 3, I'm going to move John's data out of the way, and you can see that I have my practice file there in the background. But what I want to do is I want to kind of look at the data and find out if there's any columns that I can get rid of. So for example, in this zip code postal file, you'll see the only thing we have is 99999. That really doesn't add anything to the data, so I'm going to get rid of that column. I'm also, if I look here, I have the same thing, it's all just USA. Going to get rid of that column. I'm also going to get rid of the 2 rows above here because we don't need those. And let's see, I think that will do it. I think that'll give us enough work there. I'm also going to do a couple other things that I know we'll need to do ahead of time. I'm going to go down here to the category, and in the category I'm going to look for, I see that I have blanks. So if I unselect all by just doing that toggle and then click on blanks, what I can do here is I can put in the category of shipping, because it looks like it's shipping fee that's in there. Again, I can put 0. And by the way, I could copy these or do some quick shortcuts, but we're only talking about 3 things. So basically, we'll get it in there. So now I'll stop the text filter and we'll get it all back. So that's the first thing I would do when I clean up the data. Oh, here's another one. I'd get rid of this. It's all in the USA, so I would definitely delete that column as well. So now we don't have any blanks in the dates. That's one thing you should always check about. I don't see any. I can tell by looking here there are no blanks, or it would give me that category. So we're probably pretty good to start working with this data. Now the next thing that I did is I actually picked a table that gave me some variations, some blue and some white, and blue and white, and so on, just so it's easier for me. And remember, whenever we want to do a pivot table, we just go to insert and we can do pivot table. Now there are recommended tables that you can look at here that you can see. They've done it by region as well. They've got quite a few different suggestions there, but we're just going to go pivot table. And I've actually already renamed this table, and so it doesn't come up with numbers. I've called it ABC Global Data. I always name my data because I think it makes it easier. And you'll notice here we can put it to a new worksheet, and so I can say OK. Now I'm not going to say OK because actually I can go down here and I've already got some of this done. So one of the first tables that I did was a sales trend data table. I'll click over in here so you can kind of see it. The difference between mine and John's, one is that I decided to use all of my tables were going to be using green, some shade of green. So basically I wanted to use green, and I wanted this one to stand out pretty well. So the other thing I did is I added a trend line. And so what you can do whenever you want to add a trend line, you can just actually click that. Like if I unclick this, you'll see that go away. And that, I think that's good because that kind of gives you an idea when you're working with sales, especially when we start doing a slice and dice with the slicer. We'll be able to see if some sales are on an upward trend or a downward trend, or if they're inconsistent. So I always like to put a trend line, especially when we're looking at sales trends anyway. So that's one thing that's different, and you can see how I've done that. I've grouped it have it by month. I have the order date and then by month in there, so you can see that. That's the same thing that John did with his grouping and how he did it. So, and then I also have my salesperson one. Again, you see I have it in green. And maybe the white on green doesn't show up as well, but I kind of like it. I did this category and salesperson just so I could see who were the top sellers in each of these categories. And it does look like Nancy, you see Nancy's name a lot. I think Nancy is really doing pretty well, and she does a big, good job for us in beverages. I didn't really bring this into my, I didn't bring it into my dashboard, but I do think that when you're slicing and dicing data, that's good. I looked at my sales by region. Again, I've used a lot of the green colors. I had to rename this. This is said group 1. I had to rename it to location. And so you can see over here that I've dragged down the sum and the region. And then that grouping is just shown there. The other thing I did was I did the sales by category, although I didn't put this in the dashboard. I kind of wanted to see it, to see what was there, and I can tell then who are my top sellers in by category. And then I have my top 5 customers, something like what we saw in John's. Again, I do it with green. And here's the number of orders and invoice amount, and as you can see, I've got the distribution set up there as well. So, and then of course here's my regular data. Now let me show you my dashboard. And my dashboard looks a lot different than what you see in John's, because again, like I say, I like the green color. I'm going to probably use a green color PowerPoint to actually slice and dice this data. And I actually brought up a slicer on category. I thought that this might be better to have, because one of the things I noticed, beverages is my top seller. I saw that earlier when I looked at that tab, and when I click on beverages, I see, it looks pretty good. We got a lot, but it's not sold in the East at all. You can see here there's barely any beverages sold in the East, and that doesn't make sense to me. Why do we not have beverages in the East? And if I click on East here, we can see that's only a total of $924, and there's 6 orders that are under $1,000, obviously, because they totaled to $924. So that kind of tells me right there that something's happening with the East. And the other thing I like to do is when I click on these over here, I see beverages is on an upward trend. Baked goods is on an upward trend. Canned meats is up. Dried fruits and nuts is very level. Although it looks, if you look at this last one, that trend line's based on the average. So it's up in November and December, which could be very seasonal. Jams and preserves are up high. Sauces looks like it's trending up, but not real quickly. We saw beverages a while ago. But basically what you can see is this. I like having the slicer on category, because this is what I sell, and I could take a look at this and see the kinds of things that we might need to do. Candy, pretty level. Dairy products on its way up. Grains actually on its way down. Pasta is very level. And soups it looks like it's up on its way up. So essentially what you can do with that is you can basically look at that trend line and tell things that are going up or down. Anyway, I wanted to make sure that you at least had another perspective on this, basically the dashboard, because I do think that categories mean something. I've really never liked having a dashboard that when you clicked on the slicer you had these categories, because as you can see it shows the East location here. That's the only thing we see in here. But the one thing that is nice about this is then I can see in the East what the sales are. I can see what salesmen are in the East, the number of orders and the top customers in there. So, I still think it works. I just don't like this quite as well. Normally what I would do is not have a category by region here, but I do think that this, for a quick look, it tells you a lot. So hopefully this gave you a slightly different perspective on the dashboard, and that you'll feel free to, you don't have to absolutely duplicate what John has. You can play with it a little bit and work with your own color scheme to make it what you like. So that's all for today. Thanks.